Good morning, dear PWN Romania members, fans, ambassadors, supporters. Thank you for watching us. It's our first edition of 2024. A very long year, one day longer than all the others. So we have plenty of time to discuss about very important conversations and very important topics. And this is why in this first edition of the year, in this morning, I asked a very dear friend, I might say, of PWN Romania to join me for my coffee. And I welcome Frank Basinski. Welcome to our show.
Thank you, Alina. Thank you very much for the invitation. I feel honored.
It is a pleasure, and every time and anytime I talk to you, though I never have enough time because we all the time we meet in different occasions of PWN Romania. Either there are official events, like you are a mentor in our mentoring program, you are a speaker in different other pillars conducted by by my colleagues, and to our annual garden or Christmas party. And I never have enough time to talk to you. So I created my own time because I want to be in charge and leader of my time. So this is what I want to discuss with you about leadership. Our members and our followers, our audience know that every time we touch like the same subject, like leadership subject, let's say, it's never from the same perspective. So this is why today, again, we will have a different angle of the discussion about leadership. How about discussing about leadership or leading ourselves, and this make us better or worse, I don't know, leaders for others? So this is why I want to actually to discuss with you because I would like to say we are transitioning, but we are not. Very fast changing time, very fast pacing changing times, and we are all the time waiting for getting back to the normality. What is normality nowadays, and how can we be better leaders for ourselves in this time?
That is a very wide question. Okay, so let me elaborate a little bit what's on my mind when you ask me this. So first of all, I think that most of us are very much driven by a reactive thinking. So the way we feel about things, our actions are often informed just more by our emotions or our moods or circumstances. We find fault in others, as I said, in circumstances, in our boss, in our parents, and so on. So we think that our experience of life is determined by other things. So either a genetic disposition, I'm always easily upset because my grandfather was the same, or I have a problem speaking in public because I got punished when I was a kid when I was opening my mouth by my father. So it's psychological damage. Or it's because, I don't know, something's happening around the politics. There's, legislation that makes my business more difficult. And so we focus on these things. And that's actually also the reason why I said, let's take the title of our talk today. It's like Stand Up Now and Start Leading Your Life, is to focus on what we can be proactive about so that our life is led by decisions and not our feelings, which are fleeting and changing, right? And it's driven by decisions and not our circumstances. And all of that must be based on something that is an unchangeable core within ourselves, because everything else is changing. What do you place your reality on, right? If things are changing constantly, right? So the trick is to find something that is an unchangeable core in ourselves. So I'll stop for a moment to give you a moment to dig in.
How do we do finding this unchangeable thing that we can control, or that would give us the idea that we are in control?
So, well, first of all, let's know this. It's this old wisdom, right? The old wisdom here that I want to quote is that of that between stimulus and response, there's a gap.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a stimulus, something that we hear or see, a thought that we might be having, or something like that, and we could either react instinctively based on whatever our mental makeup is at the moment, or we can use this gap to
Okay.
how we want to react, what we want to say, what action is aligned with our values and our priorities and what's important for us. And that leads us to the discussion, also old wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
about the circle of control or circle of influence and the circle of concern. So there are a handful of things, maybe two handful of things that are actually in our influence. Very little things are under control. The only thing that we have control over actually is this gap between stimulus and response. That's control. And then through our actions, we have the ability to influence certain things. Other things we can't. As much as I am upset about the wars in the world, I personally don't think I can do something about this. Now, I have to make that choice in this gap between stimulus, like, for example, let's say the fear of maybe the war be coming to us, what's happening then, and so on, whether I stay there or whether I spend my vital energy on things that I can influence. So that's the underlying principle, is to just know at all times, Alina, what is in our control. Am I worrying about something that I can do absolutely nothing about? And you are really wasting a lot of vital energy, and in the process of that, probably a lot of your happiness and joy.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about your first answer about how we think that we cannot do this or that because this is how we inherited. I don't know, the fear of
Mm-hmm.
not having enough. Some people do think that because in our family, for example, we fear that we don't have enough time, enough supplies, enough money, enough, we inherit this, and actually we do, but we don't inherit like from the genetic point of view. This is meant that I want to pass it with you. We actually inherit the behavior, so we actually borrow the behavior.
Yeah, we copy.
In these circumstances, how can we get rid of actually the inherited, which is only the copy, uh, because otherwise we will be stuck in this mentality that I cannot do that because my parents also are feared of, I don't know, so I cannot talk in public because I'm very shy. My mother is very shy, so normally that I'm very shy.
Mm-hmm.
How can we make the difference between, okay, what we actually inherit like genetically, and that there are some things that we cannot change, um, but the rest is just copied, as you say. How can we just first understand this, second make the difference, and then change? Because we're talking about changing the paradigm now.
Yeah, it's a yes, exactly. That's what we're talking about in the end. And let me give you a little context to answer this, or just a little different perspective in
Mhm.
addition. So a lot of people, more than you think, or probably you and me too, are, how do you say, a little bit of a victim of this determinism, even without knowing it. So you were saying, you were quoting a person that says, "Oh, because my mother was shy, I was shy." So it means they're aware of that link. A lot of
Mhm.
people are not even aware of that link. Now, so the thing is, as we grow up, of course, we are in a state of dependence. We're in a deep state of dependence. We would not be able to survive without the care of our parents, or of someone that actually cares about us. So we're dependent, but we cannot function as adults that are dependent in this world. If we're always dependent on whether our genetic disposition, our psychological experiences or the circumstances around the world are dictating what my life is going to be about, I'm still dependent. You don't want to be dependent as an adult. You want to be independent.
True.
So you need to change from being driven by something else towards saying, I'm in charge. I'm going to stand up and lean myself right now. I'm going to put myself in the driver's seat. And that starts with, first of all, being proactive about our choices. And it goes on towards defining what our life is actually going to be about. It's one thing that in particular in Romania is something that I noticed that also exists elsewhere, but it seems to, I don't know, maybe it's coincidental that I came across this, but I have a feeling it's more, systemic, that there's a lot of young adults that are at the university studying something or in a job doing something, not because it was their choice, but because they find it unacceptable, or they're afraid of it, essentially, to make their own choices because they're living out the script that their parents are laying out for them, which are all good intentions. Okay, so if I'm a parent and I want the best for my kids, and it's a very natural reaction to try to influence them to not make any stupid mistakes based on what my paradigm is.
You touched a very good point indeed. In Romania, I think, or maybe in Balkanic area, the parents try to influence this. That's true.
Yeah, and it's not just Romania. I know that for sure, but it's something that I notice as I sometimes work here with the university, and sometimes I sit down with the students, also sometimes in a one-on-one setting. And then usually the conversation starts around like, oh, I'm doing this year now for the second time. I'm not having good grades and so on. What can I be doing different? And then I ask them, do you want to be here?
Yeah, exactly.
And they said, no, not really. It's just because, my parents said I have to become an engineer. And I said, what are your other options? And some of them are even saying, so one of them told me, I'm actually more passionate about IT. And I actually already have I have 2 customers that work with me all the time. I do some services, I forgot, with them. And I make this much money for it. And I said,
but don't tell my mother.
And I said, what are you doing here? In construction. And they say, wow, no, it's because my parents wanted me to become an engineer. Do your parents know about that you're so amazingly successful with the other thing? No, I can't tell them. And that was surprising to me, because I thought that if their parents were probably super proud, but maybe that's not the case. Anyway, let's not dwell too much on this particular story. But the thing is that as we become adults, we need to begin to make our own decisions and stop feeling or giving preference to any sort of determinism. Otherwise, how are we going to discover who we could be in this world? We have to make those steps, and it starts with being proactive rather than reactive, saying that I make my decisions based on what's important for me, what are my values. I make my decisions not based on the circumstances, unless they're absolutely forcing it, but I make my decisions. It requires a little bit of courage, right? It does. It's scary being an adult, in a sense. Yeah, we never know what's happening, and then you need to react to it somehow. Just like you and I were earlier saying, we don't have any prepared questions. You ask me anything, and I just start to react.
Exactly. Right? And I would get back to that about preparation of no preparation. Let's say it like that. But I want to get back to, okay, you said it's a particular story, the one that you said, but it's actually very general. It's not so particular.
I realize that.
Particular. And it worries me, actually, because you are talking about this period students. So it's a huge difference of years. I'm saying about the past mentality that we inherited from older communism, because it is true. Back then, parents would say, okay, which is the most secure and sure job? Engineer, doctor, and lawyer. And
Mhm.
I don't know, somehow, even we are the second generation after this type of mentality, we still have kind of the same mentality that we enforce, because I would say pass on, but we actually enforce to our kids. And how can they discover, because this is my question, how can we help them actually discover that they are in a determined mentality, and they need to be proactive? Because if they are not aware that this is not the way, how can we show them that they have to choose a different way, or they can choose a different way? How can we make them understand that this is not life itself, to just be determined by the sum of the decision that other people make for you?
Yeah, well, that requires, of course, for the parents to themselves question their paradigm, which is usually not happening.
Yep.
Uh, Unless there's some traumatic event, people usually don't really change their paradigm at some point. So there's something to be said about constant curiosity and openness to things that are strange to us and that represent different approaches and ideas, for us to just not become uh, such an unmoving psychological object that we may be as a parent. So, for example, um, my children go a different path.
Mm-hmm.
So, thinking also, just recently, I spoke with someone, you could say it's a conservative businessman. He had to live with the fact that their kids wanted to become content creators or drop shippers or something like that, and they wanted to get out of school for this. And luckily, that person that I'm referring to is really incredibly open-minded, and more than you would think if you would know. And so he let the kids. He let the kids make their own choices. He probably thought in the beginning, I'm just going to have to let them make a mistake so they get back on the same path.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, was he proven wrong. The kids are barely over 20 and they make their first million.
Wow.
So if money is a goal, but this is the thing. Just have to be we have to be open ourselves in order to support our kids. But because that's usually not the case,
True.
I do spend a lot of time trying to teach people in a way and inspire them in a way to begin to realize that it starts with being proactive and then deciding what your life is going to be about. You make the decision. We're the product of. How do we get, Alina? How do we get the sense of who we are in this world and what our life is about? What do you think?
That's a very tough question. I feel like I'm preparing for the exams that are starting next week in
You
psychology.
said it's going to be a discussion. Now, what do you feel? It's no right or wrong. I just wonder.
No, it is not right or wrong and wrong. Maybe it will start when we really understand that nothing is right and nothing is wrong. Because to really discover who we are, the sense of the living, of our living, actually, because we need to think first about ourselves, and we normally don't do this, and this is bad. We think that if we think first about ourselves, we are selfish, and it is not true. And every time people are saying, no, 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 I don't want to think about myself, because what about the others? I all the time tell them the airplane example. You need to put the oxygen mask first to yourself in order to help others. This is the same if I can compare them. In order to discover myself, I need to be focusing about myself and to accept that I might fail one, two, or a few times.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to do this, Frank, I think from my experience, I say only I think, not that I'm sure, even though I'm sure, because I got to this point when some things about life, I'm sure about them because I experience them, not because I read them in a book. Though I read a lot of books about this and about that, for me, discovering the sense and the values, which are more important, and I heard you say about values a few times, for me are very important. But how can we discover actually our values if not by trying from early ages, trying different things, being around people that we feel attracted to, intellectually attracted to, and then to see them as examples, but not to make them an idol.
Okay, so that's already the process of you questioning
Exactly.
the validity of whatever sense of who you are in this world you have just taken for granted growing up. And so we get this, to complete this, we get this essentially from our social mirrors, so our parents, our siblings, the media,
Exactly.
I don't know, our career and the people in it, the politics and our social media and so on. So we compare ourselves, where are we, what's our role? And I can guarantee you, I mean, that in most cases, the way you grow up or the environment that you grow up, that's your trajectory in most cases. Now,
I'm
so
the same
that's
example, Frank. I'm the same
yeah.
example. I was not taught differently like all the people that you are saying about. I was taught exactly the same thing. I did economics because it was
Yeah.
a fair enough choice, even though my passion was advertising. But guess what? There were no advertising universities in Romania back then. So how can I do it? But I am the result of the same kind of the same mentality. But if we are really pay attention to ourselves and to life in general, life comes at some point and gives you a slap and they said, look, change the perspective. If you are not willing to do that back then, maybe life gives you one or two other chances. But if you're not paying attention neither then the opportunity of seeing a different perspective or changing the paradigm will pass through.
Yeah. That's, I understand. So the point with this really is to just understand that we usually take over a sense of who we are in this world in relation to others and everything else from outer sources, not from within our own mind. So we copy it.
At the beginning,
At the
yes.
beginning, yes. So, and the problem is that most people never question it, as I said, unless they maybe have some sort of traumatic experience or go through something extreme. Unless they are in pain, they never look really inside and check the paradigm. The paradigm, like a pair of glasses that make you see a particular way. So here's the thing that I want people to do: is one is to develop the awareness that they are in the driver's seat about their decisions, their actions, and their words. And use that space all the time based on making a decision to use it, first of all, instead of being driven by anything else, circumstances, and so on. So that's number one. But if you have the awareness that you're in the driver's seat, the second step is to decide, underline, bold, to decide what your life is going to be about or wants and needs to be about based on your decision. And then everything else will flow from that. Everything else will flow from that. And then there we arrive at, for example, at the idea of values and principles. So hopefully we decide for something that I call worthy values, right? Such as, honesty, persistence, and so on and so forth, and not greed and retaliation and so on and so forth. Okay, so so there are just a number of values and principles that always generate positive outcomes, and other ones just don't. So if you make a decision on that and you decide what are the most important people in your world, what is important to you as in terms of self-actualization, and and friendship and love and success, all these kinds of things. Vocation, profession, figure out what it is that you actually want, and you base it on your values. Then you have a compass and a blueprint, which then represents this unchangeable core. Then when everything else changes, you are still in power and you know where you want to go. Whatever situation presents itself, you will not struggle much to find what decision you have to take in order what action to take. Because it will never feel wrong to you. It will feel right for you. You sometimes have to suffer consequences of your decision, always, right? We choose our actions, we don't choose our consequences. So, and that's the core that I want people to have.
Mm-hmm.
To sit themselves down. Here's the thing, but people never do. And I'm saying this now knowing that nobody's going to do this. They sit themselves down and formulate on a couple of pages what really matters, what our life should be about, what are priorities for us, what isn't, and then make decisions on that, on spending time and energy on what matters to us. Nobody's going to congratulate you that you've been an amazing economist at the last day of your life when none of your actions have ever made you happy because you're just on the wrong path. There's this beautiful image. It's the last thing I'm going to say, and I'll let you. Mm-hmm. This beautiful image where I say, imagine you're climbing a very, very long ladder. And it takes all your life to get to the top. And then when you're on the top and you look around, you find that the ladder has been leaning against the wrong wall. That's what's happening with most people. And that's a tragedy. And it's so easy to avoid if early enough in our life, but it's never too late, to actually decide what is our life going to be about. Stop doing the things that are not in harmony with that image. Now I'm going to shut up.
Yeah, but now, Frank, you put me in a lot of questions in my mind. Actually, not wonderings, because the questions I already had and I already answered. And to answer, though you didn't ask me, yes, it's never too late to change. I actually listened to the life coming towards me with this kind of questions like 10 years ago, more or less. So not very early in my life.
Me neither.
Tell me.
Well, same thing. So actually, we have a little bit of a similar story in the regard of that. I have a degree in electric engineering, and I never worked a day in my life in it. Because luckily, I figured out after that I had the degree, said, that's not what I want. It's not right. You know, that was script following. That was script following because my father was one. You know?
About this, about work
Yeah.
itself, actually, I feel I am one of the lucky ones. This is how I define myself. The lucky ones, because even though I did economics, back in my mind, maybe I'm a rebellious person and I didn't know it, but back in my mind, I said, okay, what kind of university should I do to go to United States to study actually advertising? So I had a little black person in my head and say, do that, do that, do that. It didn't work like that, but at least I listened and followed a bit. I did what my parents said. Okay, economics for you is good. I went to the economic, foreign affairs, because it was the only way in my mind back then, go abroad. I didn't go abroad, so I didn't study in United States advertising, but I actually started working only in advertising. So I am the lucky one because life actually put me on my path. And this is how, when I
No, you
started
put yourself
questioning
on the path.
myself, I knew that life took care of me, because if I was not able to listen or to let me go to the flow of life, I wouldn't maybe actually working for advertising. So I wouldn't follow my dream. So about this perspective of work, I never worked about in my life anything else but advertising and communication. So for this, I'm a lucky one. But this doesn't mean that I didn't have a lot of other areas of my life that I didn't listen, or I followed the rules like I was taught to. And I discovered late in life, this is what I was saying about my purpose. Okay, my passion is and will always be advertising and communication. But what do I do with that? What's the purpose when I get in the end of the of my life? Is the same question. Would people say, wow, Alina was the best communication person ever? No.
That's not what you want to hear, right? This is the thing. If you could write your own eulogy speech, what you want to hear, let's say, your brother say, that you wouldn't put that in the list,
No, I
right?
wouldn't actually.
You wouldn't.
No, yeah, I wouldn't.
So,
You know what I
and
would
that's the
put?
thing.
No,
Yeah.
I would put about my communication skills, but in a different way. How many lives Alina touched with her communication abilities? How many lives could she change, or maybe actually she did change because of her abilities? So this is a
Mhm.
purpose for me. This is
Yeah,
what I would
better.
like to hear at the end of my days, to see, I don't know, tons of people, I don't know, 1, 2, 10 million, I don't know, depending of my mission, uh, that have a better life, a better perspective, better life, not material, but for themselves, because of me. This
Yeah,
is what
and
I
now
would.
the only thing that you need to do, I mean, you as an example, need to do is to make sure that your choices and actions every day are leading to this moment and
Exactly.
not sabotaging that moment.
I do sabotage myself sometimes because I'm human.
Everybody does. We're not perfect, but the thing is to have the intention and then just follow up. We can forgive ourselves if we fail, but then we need to get back on track. With what matters to us, because there's you also have probably seen interviews with older people that are carrying regrets, carrying deep regrets about things that they most of the time regret that there's something that they haven't done,
Hmm.
that they should have done. And
True.
so there's a lesson in that, in that we make sure that we just need to make sure that once we have a compass, once we know what our life is going to be about, once we decide what our life is going to be about, that then we have the proactivity to make those things happen. And it starts with, and I picked up on that, what you said earlier, is on we need to stop using reactive language,
Hmm.
because that really programs us to accept that we're driven by other circumstances. It's our choices. So people way too often say, this too, I'm sure. People are saying, um, I'm sorry, I can't be in this meeting. I'm sorry, I can't be there, or I can't do this because I have to do this and that. No, this is actually not true. It's your choice.
Hmm.
Why not use the language, something like that? I won't be there. I have something that's more important.
For
Um,
me, yeah.
I choose. I know. Thank you for giving me the option, but I'm choosing this. You know, here's what I prefer, and not what I have to, or something like that. And that's a. If you would ask me, how do I become a little bit more proactive? How do I escape this trap
Mhm.
of thinking reactively and then feel ultimately so driven by the world and our life? Is, and start with the language. Pay attention to it, because then we believe what we're telling ourselves. Eventually, just program yourself. Just notice it when you're using reactive language, like I can't, and I I, I have to do this, and I must. You don't. It's a choice, right? It's a choice. Maybe it's the only sane choice, or the cleverest choice, but it's still a choice. And
True.
that's a good start to figure out that you're actually in charge.
You said a very interesting thing, at least for me, because I'm a word person, about how we program ourselves. And I don't want to go to NLP and how we program
Mhm.
ourselves with words, but words are really important. And we don't pay attention. As you said, we don't pay attention to them. And there are a lot of people still saying, they are just words. I said that because I'm tired, or because I'm upset, or because.
Mhm.
No, words for me are very important, because at the beginning of this universe, first it was the word. There were no images, there were no I don't know, other programs. It was the word. So a word has the vibration to enter in our mind and to program, as you said, everything that we do. So if we intoxicate, because this is the true word, ourselves with words like I have to, I must do that, I cannot do that, the mind will follow. And will this is how I teach, for example, Frank, my daughter, which is only 9 years old, and you saw her because it's our volunteer in
Mhm.
PWN, because she has the same mentality. I don't know, maybe she borrowed it from other people of our family, maybe from me, my earliest age of me. But she's saying, no, 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 I cannot do that. No, 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 I'm afraid to do that. And this is, I'm trying to
That will
step.
be the truth, maybe. Yeah.
Yes, yes, it would be the truth. But I'm trying to teach her that if she says, I cannot do that, or I'm not good at math, or I cannot learn a poem, or I don't know what she thinks she cannot do, actually, she will not be able to do that, because her mind is really willing to please her and will follow this idea. You cannot learn at math, you will never be good at math, because this is how you program it to be. So maybe this is what people should understand, that what we are saying, exactly what you said, what we are saying to ourselves actually becomes true. But I don't want, and this is what I want to discuss with you, I don't want to go to another extreme. And unfortunately, you saw there are a lot of coaches, trainers in our environment, uh, pseudo, I would say, that say all the time, use these words and your life will just change, will expand, you will be in abundance. And we start using different words that actually become with no relevance, because we use them without believing them. How can we protect ourselves, Frank, from going to this type of extremes? Because we are willing actually to listen more to these people, because it sell us, they sell us a dream, and we do believe in dreams. And at the end of the road, we discovered that it was not good for ourselves, and then we go back to the same mentality that destroyed us before. So how can we do this line? Because it's very thin.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are so many things that I want to say about this. Let me just sort my thoughts a little here.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, I don't want to speak about other coaches or influencers. Some of them are really good. A lot of them have great intentions, but maybe aren't that good or
I'm
whatever.
talking about the trend, Frank,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
for people,
yeah,
about trend
yeah,
now.
yeah. So the thing is, there is some serious character work that needs to be done inside ourselves, and there is no shortcut to it. People are looking for a shortcut, for becoming confident or for getting rich or whatever it really is. But there are no such shortcuts. There is not a single thing or a little recipe that I can give you or anybody else that requires you to magically say a word 3 times and then the world will look different. That's not happening. There is serious work that needs to be done. Reflection. When I say work, it's reflection,
Mm-hmm.
facing our fears, questioning our paradigms, trying different things that are slowly going to change our experience of life. Slowly but surely, if we're at it. But this is the thing. It's don't. I just have this advice to you. Don't. There's no self-help books that give you a quick recipe for anything. I've been recently, just for example, I've been recently watching a lot of YouTube videos from people that say, here's how you get quickly rich with this and this kind of business. Because
This
one of my
kind of
sons is
thing I was
looking to become
thinking
an
about.
entrepreneur and
Mm-hmm.
he's having some of those ideas, he's picking them up. And I'm watching these things, and then through my life experience, I'm seeing that they paint a very incomplete image. There's no such thing as a quick getting rich. It's a lot of work and perseverance, no matter which idea you follow. You can't just, it's just impossible. There's no shortcuts. That's what people usually misunderstand. And I think that's what you're referring to.
Exactly. No, I'm not talking about a real coach and the real trainer will never sell this idea. In 3 weeks from now, do this and that, and you will be, I don't know, finding the job of your life, the love of your life, the I don't know of your life. This kind of, but we are very tricked in doing this because it sounds more, I don't know, more glamorous. But and we don't follow the hard road, as you said. You didn't use these words, but we need to understand that it is not an easy path to discover what you are saying. It is a hard path.
I mean, hypothetically, you can change in a moment. You can change right now. So with regards to, let's say, anything that's rather psychological, let's say you're shy and you can decide to be confident right now. It's just a decision in the end. But the way to that decision for most people is a longer road.
True.
You know, so we have to recognize and work with and discredit and rebuild our cognitive distortions in a way that we have a different construct in our mind. So that is maybe more in favor of what we had before. So that why the reality for most people is work. The decision is usually, so very often people, until they get to a point, the decision to change and practically puts them on a path where things can go rapidly if there's no more inner resistance. But getting there usually just requires time, work, intention, practice, and these kind of things.
And a word that we didn't use for now, but I will start using it now because I want to ask you to talk about also failure and the fear of failure, because sometimes I think it's very hard to start this journey because one, it's very difficult to talk with our demons. This is how I call them, because to make introspection, actually you need to talk with your demons, with all your fears, with all your negative, let's say, the black part of your mind. And we are very we fear very much about failure. And I want to touch this subject because we are talking about leadership, and if we want to lead others and lead ourselves, we need to talk about failure. What is actually failure, and how can we avoid, not failure because we cannot avoid failure, but to think that we failed in life because we had some failures? What's your opinion about failure in this journey of leadership and leading ourselves?
So actually, it's a much bigger field than it seems on the surface, because on the one hand side, when you're talking about self-judgment, which is I am tying my self-worth and self-love based on being perfect and infallible, that's a bankrupt strategy to a life. It's just not going to work, because all of us sooner or later make some kinds of mistakes. We're almost always imperfect. So there's also something to be learned, unless you didn't get this from growing up with your parents, that we have to deploy empathy and compassion also to ourselves, not just to others. So that's a skill, because a lot of us have a very, very strong inner judge that is constantly beating us up for our shortcomings and mistakes. And well, if you have this kind of judge as a leader, then you probably shows, well, there's a certain probability that you show signs of a perfectionist and maybe a hyperachiever and these kind of things. But you make the wrong decisions then all the time, because you're trying to ultimately control something that's uncontrollable, So that's one thing. However, then also, how do you deal with failure? Another important part is how, from a character perspective, how do I deal with if my decisions and actions have caused consequences? Because it's not just about, let's say, I'm giving a presentation on that day and I suck, okay, nothing bad has happened really. I'm still healthy. Nobody has any physiological
True.
damage from that event. So there's not much. I can still stick on staying with my mind on, oh, you fool, you should have said that and you didn't prepare,
Mhm.
and these kind of things. But it's inconsequential in the end. It's only for me. Maybe the consequences, they're gonna not invite me the next time. Okay, so now I can go back to what's in my control. I can say, okay, so apparently I need to get better with something. I'm going to study this more. I'm going to practice more.
Mhm.
I'm going to try again elsewhere, smaller, whatsoever. If this is an important path for me, I'll eventually just get better, and at someday I'll get the same chance or something similar again, and I'm just going to be brilliant because I've been practicing so much and so on. So that's that. But then there are also mistakes that we make based on our decisions and actions that cause serious consequences
Mhm.
for us, but maybe also for others, for our businesses, for our co-workers, for our friends, for other people in general. And there, it's something that I wish people were more accountable. That they don't just carry the responsibility, meaning like I'm the one taking the decisions,
Mhm.
but also are accountable for the outcome. Not just getting the bonus when something went well, let's say corporate
Exactly.
environment, but also saying if something sucked and the company has to downgrade or something like that, I got to suffer with that too. I am accountable, you
Mhm.
know. And so entrepreneurs have this because there's nobody else saying, you know, that is essentially, at least I hope they have it.
Well,
And
you would be surprised, Frank, that not
yeah,
everybody has that, because it's easier to point the finger, even though we are the only accountable, like the entrepreneur. We will find
accountability
that.
is important for actually for ourself, for the self-respect that we have towards ourselves. It's very difficult to um, it's very difficult to trust anyone else, also if we can't even trust ourselves. So let's say in traffic, I'm bumping against someone's car.
Mhm.
I create some damage. I have the option to lie about it and say it wasn't me. Oh, it was
I know a
someone
song
else. A
about
lot
it.
of people take this choice because they don't want to be accountable for the consequences. They have to pay some fine and so on and so forth. That's terrible. I think for self-respect also, if you own it and say
Mhm.
it was my mistake, I have to pay for it. I don't know. Maybe I have to sell my car in order to have enough money to pay the damage, but it was me. Okay, in this case, you probably have an RGR, but who knows, right? So let's say something that where you have to make up for it.
I got the example, and it's really really relevant, because it's true. It's easier to say it wasn't me, or it was somebody else, or the destiny, or whatever. Even though I
Mm,
believe in hazard, I really do believe that somewhere we have a written path. Actually, we are here with self willing, yeah, the free will to decide which road we take. So we need to be accountable for all the actions that we do, because they
this is
have
it.
consequences. True.
You're absolutely right. So these are, and this is brings us circle back to making a decision what our life is going to be about, and the principles upon we want to live, or live in this life. So there have to be principles, and some of them create always in the long run, they create a good experience of life, such as honesty, accountability, and so on. So there are just some principles, and if we just follow them, we feel much better about ourselves. The thing is, maybe we're trying to avoid consequences, but in the end, even if we're not formally caught for it, we have to live with them. And
True.
and that makes and what does it then do to our self-respect? We know it deep inside. We know when we did something wrong.
Oh
We
yeah,
do,
and
right?
follows you.
And
It follows you everywhere if you have morals, because there are in this world people with no morals, because actually, if society defined morals, so universally there is no moral, so everybody lives with a different moral, but the society gives us moral. But with the people that are the majority, yeah, we really do have to live with that thought that we did something bad. Maybe it was not that bad if we accepted it. Actually, we make
Yeah.
it bigger if we deny it. Like the failure part, the same, we make it bigger if we fear, if we fear of it. And because we are close to the end, I wanted to say, because you said it at some point in our discussion that we had no preparation whatsoever, no questions about our discussion. And look, we have 50 minutes of talking without interrupting. Interrupting, not knowing what to say, because we actually took also this accountability now of, I don't know, maybe at some point we don't know what to talk about and we will whatever make a joke, I don't know, but we didn't stop. Why we didn't stop? Because we didn't have anything prepared. And I'm asking you this in the perspective of this leadership, because not being prepared, but we are prepared. How do we prepare ourselves? This is the question of without being prepared, or for not being prepared.
Yeah. So there's something to be said about that. We have to know our stuff, right? So there's just something. If I'm a dentist, I just have to know a lot of things about teeth and how to treat them and so on and so forth. But or
And not
whether
go
you're a
to a
medic
show
or an
about
engineer
music,
or something like that. So there's no such thing as, because that's part of our responsibility, that we have a good knowledge and also seek to always expand it and so on and so forth. But knowledge doesn't necessarily save us from unforeseen situations, right? It just prepares us well then to have a good fighting chance to deal with that new circumstance.
Mhm.
So the reason why our conversation is flowing well is not because I or you have preparation on what to say about what questions, because we can't know, but it's because we generally feel that this is a subject that I'm, even, for example, for me, it was a decision to accept the invitation, because I want to talk about this, right? And you may have asked me a question that actually you did ask me a question that I didn't quite know, and I had to think. There's so many things that I want to say about this. What was it again? I think about it was also about failure, and so from a leadership perspective, you will quite often be in a situation where you just have maybe a good guess, but you can't know for sure. But that's nothing to be afraid of. Seriously, not.
Exactly.
You know,
Does not make you
and
a worse leader if you don't know the answer. What do you do then? Exactly, Frank. When somebody of your team, and when I mean team, it's not only your team at work, because everybody that's
yeah,
around you, because you can be, and actually you are. If you are a leader, for me, you are born to be a leader, and then you just I don't know, refine your abilities. This is my belief. Nobody can change my belief. Otherwise, you can be a very, very good manager. So you are a leader. So you are a leader in your professional and in your personal. So when I say team, I'm expanding to all the people around you. And somebody asks you a question and you don't know. Is it okay? Makes you a worse leader because you don't know a question. You cannot even know the answer at all. What do you do?
I never found it. And to be honest, with great leaders that I've met and worked with, they never feel particularly challenged not knowing something
Mm-hmm.
and then saying, I have no idea. Let's find out. So
Exactly.
if you don't know something, the smartest reaction to that is deploying more curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And I could ask, I don't know, Alina, do you have an idea? Why not? Why wouldn't I ask you? If I, at least when I suspect that you might bring a different perspective to the problem or something like that. And even if I think I know, if time permits, not talking
Mm-hmm.
about an emergency situation, I would go, Alina, on this situation, I'm thinking this and that. What am I not seeing?
Mm-hmm.
Is there
Mm-hmm.
anything I'm not seeing? Right? So I would even consult. unless there's no time for more consultation, a situation requires immediate action, immediate decision, go for it, take the risk, carry the consequences, right? But other than that, not, I'll tell you something, after years and years of being in the leadership job that I was, I had a feeling that nothing could surprise me anymore because everything has already happened and just kept
Mm-hmm.
happening, same things. Whether it's an acquisition or
True, true.
something or an economic downturn, you essentially already have an idea. You're glad at some point about that. The new situation represents itself where you don't know what to do, because that's also exciting. So
Because it's challenging.
more curiosity is the answer.
Good. I wanted to point this out because here we are really, really afraid of not knowing the answer and saying, because about the self esteem that you were talking about earlier, probably, to accept, I don't know the answer, or I have only an idea, or Frank, what do you think about this? We don't do that because it doesn't look good on ourselves. And it's fine. We are better leaders if we actually do this. So this was my uh, punchline,
I wonder if, yeah, look, I think that's changing.
hopefully.
So more experienced leaders that I work with here, they find this still, because their boss is also maybe something that would judge them, like, what do you mean you don't know? I'm hiring for you to know.
Exactly.
But then in the younger generation, I don't see that happening. Actually, it's a lot more liberal with regards to be having open discussions and admitting mistakes and so on. Not saying it's perfect, because as you said, there's always, for almost everyone, is some inner judge. They're saying,
Mhm.
"Oh, you screwed this up. You're so stupid."
No, I think
It's
I've
like
done
self-talk. So that's always there. But I think that's changing, and I think that's a really good sign, and I want to do my part to keep changing that.
Frank, we are really at the end for many, many minutes, but it is a pleasure talking to you. And I take the advantage of saying that I will see you tomorrow as well, because you have a
Yes.
workshop in our mentoring pillar, will be actually a group mentoring. And it is open not only to the mentees and mentors in the program. So this is why I'm saying you still have today, if you want. It is closely fully booked, but if you say you know Alina from the show, maybe you will find a place or two, because I'm sure it will be a very interesting mastermind. We said it mastermind because when you talk, when there are a lot of energies in the room, I'm sure every time something good will come up. So if you do want to participate to Frank's group mastermind tomorrow, please write here in the message or to our office email. You can still have the chance to meet and to talk with Frank. And in the end, Frank, I just want you to say, like, a wrap up. What would you like for people to remain with from all our discussion from today?
Realize that they're on the driver's seat and there's a gap between stimulus and response, and they're going to go and practice to use it and sit themselves down and begin with the end in mind and define what their life is going to be about. If they do this,
Mm-hmm.
which most people won't, then they have a recipe for success, happiness, fulfillment.
Thank
That's
you
what I
very
wish.
much, Frank. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you here. We will see tomorrow to your group mastermind, and then to all the other events of PWN Romania.
Thank you, Alina. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
You too, and everyone watching us, stay tuned with us. In 2 weeks, we will be here again with our coffee, with our discussion. As I already tell you every time, if you have a topic in mind that you want to discuss, or a guest that you would like to see here, please write to me right here in the comments, and I will make sure that we will put this topic on the table, because all we want to do is to discuss about things that are interesting for you, for us to learn more. So until next time, I wish you all the time to have your sun not only outside but also in your souls, and to have a good week. Frank, again, thank you. Everybody, a good day and a good week.